Welcome to VCs Off the Record. This is Real Talk with Real Investors. Your host, Gayle Jennings-O'Byrne, CEO of Wocstar Capital and co-founder of the Wocstar Fund, has spent 30 years in finance. And I'm here too. I'm Victoria Bird. I'm the Chief Content Officer and Creative Director of Wocstar Media. And I've spent 30 years in media. We champion female entrepreneurs, we champion diverse teams, and we're both passionate about stories that change old narratives. We're looking to inform you, inspire you, and help you get your bag and your dreams.
Hey, welcome to VCs Off the Record. I'm your host, Gayle Jennings-O'Byrne, the CEO of Wocstar Capital and the co-founder of the Wocstar Fund. And I'm here with the amazing Victoria Burt, who is the Chief Content Officer and Creative Director of Wocstar. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Hi.
Hello.
My God. So, there are days when you think you know some things, and there are days when you think, I don't know a lot.
I have more of those I don't know days.
I don't know.
They're stacking up. I'm getting a lot of those days.
This episode, you're going to be going deep. You're going to be going deep into biotech, planetary health, and its relationship to investing. It's deep.
Well, let's be clear. My guest is going to be going deep.
Your guest.
I'm just going to try and keep up and not pull out my Google to look up these words.
While you're talking, I'm going to have Google while you're talking. Yeah, it's really interesting, but it's about connections, right? The planet's health, our health, climate, all those things connected, and how investing in different things will improve that. I like that. It makes sense to me.
It does. I wouldn't be able to explain it to anyone.
Neither would I.
Right.
Neither would I. So I'm not going to waste your time. Here's a question.
Yeah.
Do you have to deeply, deeply understand a particular area to invest in a founder's company? Or do you have to just know they solve a problem that needs to be solved?
It's a little bit of both. You need to know enough to be able to understand what you're investing in and understand its potential and the power of what's being built. And then you need to also understand enough to be able to be helpful to that founder and that founding team. But having said all that, you've also got to be able to trust and have confidence in that management team and that founding team. And trust that they know the problem they're trying to solve and the customers they're trying to attract and the market share they're going after.
Makes sense. So this is going to be an education for both of us.
Absolutely. I'm excited for it.
All right, we'll get to it.
Let's get talking.
Talking.
Some real talk.
This episode of VCs Off the Record is brought to you by Wocstar Ghetto Film School Entrepreneurial Academy.
Hey, Wockstars. I'm here with Sabriya Stukes today, and we're going to have a deep dive in deep tech. She's an investor in early-stage biotech companies with a focus on human and planetary health challenges. Now, if you don't know what that means, that's okay. I don't really either, but she's going to walk us through this. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I have been waiting to have this conversation with you because I am just fangirling, rock starring out over all that you do. And can I just say, I hope there's a wide shot of this. Is everyone getting a look at these socks and docs? I mean, girl.
They say thank you and then have a nice day.
Fabulous. I love rock star women. We just have our sense of style.
Yeah, and I feel like the first time you and I met, it was immediate kiki. It was immediate, exactly, the hug, the rocking back and forth.
Yes.
And so it has also been a true pleasure to get to know you and the work that you're doing, not just with Wocstar, but also with supporting entrepreneurship in New York.
Thank you. And thank you for being a part of Venture Access Alliance. It's pretty impressive to have a city that's saying they want to be intentional about how venture capital gets distributed and how we as investors think about the entire city and the city of founders. And so, that's cool, but it's only as cool as the people that are part of it. So thank you for being a awesome Venture Access Alliance member. Okay, I want to start from the beginning of the first thing I heard about you or knew about you was at City College. like you were a rock star there, this microbiologist, this like director of this like cool program. Start us there. What was that all about?
So that was a master's program in translational medicine. And really the approach was, or the thinking and rationale behind it was, what would it look like if we trained scientists and engineers in the process of medical technology commercialization? So not just how do you identify a problem, how do you design a solution for it, but then how do you think about the commercialization strategy around it as it relates to also thinking about the impact of the individuals that could potentially be not just using it, but having it be used on them. So like I said, it was really around medical devices. But when I was first offered the position, and I really would like to take a moment and also highlight the Black woman who offered me that position.
Okay.
Her name is Dr. Gilda Barabino. At the time, she was the dean of the School of Engineering.
Hey, Dr. G, shout out.
For City College. And I had just graduated with my PhD from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. And as with many grad students, kind of this, I had this degree, I had this training, but didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. And in discussions with her, she said, you know, we got a little bit of funding to start this master's program, and I think you would be a great asset to be a part of building it. And at first I was like, well, what do I know about curriculum? What do I know about, you know, medical technologies? What do I know about even higher education design? And, you know, it took a bit of her faith in me, really, before I even accepted the job. But one of the reasons I accepted it was because, one, I was going to absolutely learn a new skill set, but I did also wonder, you know, how can we do a better job training grad students to think about solving problems in the world around them. So I was quite lucky. So I started as the assistant director, became the associate director. And so I was there for about 6 years, and really with the support of both the School of Engineering and the now School of Medicine at CUNY, was able to build a program that is still going. You know, we started with 4 students in a curriculum, and now I think it's 10 years later, the program's still going.
Amazing.
The master's program is still happening. More students are coming through the program and graduating. And there's so many more, I think, lessons and things I can share about that. But that really, I would say, was a
pivotal moment for you.
In many ways, both personally and professionally, I think.
And how beautiful that she saw something in you that maybe you hadn't seen.
Yes.
I wonder.
I mean, you can. I mean, obviously, your viewers and you are seeing this like glint in my eye, because one of the bits of advice I often give, you know, when grad students or others are like, "Well, how did you get these jobs? How did you even know to say yes?" I'll flat out be like, "I didn't know. I said no. She offered me the job. I said no." Yeah. Which, by the way, I didn't have any other job offers. You know, I was so nervous about taking what felt like such a responsibility, a big responsibility. Sorry. And the lesson there was sometimes, you know, you need to allow people to believe in you, and even when you don't believe in yourself or have faith in yourself. So
that's right. Beautiful, beautiful way to start this conversation. So for those of you that are listening, give yourself grace, because there will be times when you may not see something in you, but someone else does, and believe in them and trust that what they see is probably truly there. And on the flip side, if you see something in someone else, help uplift them and offer them opportunities.
I think the other thing I just would like to add to that narrative is that, you know, when I said no, I said because I didn't feel like I was ready. I didn't feel like if I stepped into that role, I would be able to give the best that I could give. And she said to me, "But when will you be ready?"
Dr. G.
And it was such a... the answer almost like caught me in my throat, because I was like, oh. And so in some ways, that also pushed me. You know, I said, well, I think I could be ready around this time. And it was just only a few more months. And then I used that time to like get it together.
Get your shit together.
Yeah. So that way, when I did come to the job, I felt like, yes, maybe I don't know everything about this job. I know some things, and I will bring those things. You know, I will bring what I know to this role, and I will figure out everything else that I don't.
And you know what you don't know, and you go get answers, and you go get other people
100%
surrounding you. How did you become a PhD student? Had there been people in your lives that had gone a science STEM route?
Well, my mother is a physician's assistant, and my dad worked in education. When he retired, he was the assistant superintendent for our county schools.
Okay.
So I kind of always had that education, science, goings-ons in the house, but not really thinking like being a scientist was a thing you could do. And not even the thing you could do, a thing the government would pay you to do for a period of time while you were learning. And I would say it actually wasn't until I graduated college and a little bit thereafter that I even learned about PhD school. Or higher education grad school as a real next step.
As a thing,
After college, I was quite lucky to get a fellowship at the National Institute of Health for a year. And even then I was studying to go to med school because I was like, well, that's what you do. You learn about science, you go to med school. And it was around then too that I realized like, oh, maybe med school is not what I want to do. But I was working in a lab and I was like, this is cool. Like, this is really cool. Really, and at the time I was working in a lab that was studying HIV. And so it was, understanding or learning more about how tiny microorganisms could have such a detrimentous impact on our immune system and on our health. And that was, I think, a guiding, I guess what you would say the North Star. I wanted to know more.
Yeah.
So even after the fellowship, I moved to New York. I got a job at NYU doing tuberculosis research, still out with those same question of like, why do tiny microorganisms impact us in such terrible ways? And it was then I was like, well, okay, I don't want to work in labs forever, kind of at a research assistant level.
That's right.
How can I grow? How can I expand? And, people have been whispering about grad school, like I said, since I was at the NIH. But it really wasn't until then that I was like, okay, if I want to grow, if I want to expand my kind of knowledge base around this, grad school seemed, at least at the time for me, a logical step. And because I really wanted to stick with microbiology and infectious diseases and understanding host pathogen interactions, there was a PI at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine.
What's PI?
Principal investigator. And so he was running a lab. His name is Dr. Arturo Casadevall. He's now at Johns Hopkins, actually. But he was doing work around a fungal pathogen called Cryptococcus neoformans. And when I met him, when I kind of understood what his lab was researching, I was like, this is kind of where I want to study for the next 5+ years of my life.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then how did you get to SOSV?
Yeah, so after 6 years at City College, I kind of felt a little like, okay, I started something, I know it's running, what's next? And at the time, a friend of mine was the CEO she had just become the CEO of a small biotech company here in New York. And similarly to when I got offered the job at City College, she said, hey, look, I've got this operator role to help build this biotech company. I think you could be a good fit. And I was like, I don't know, like to go from higher education to working at a small biotech company, I don't know. Do I have the skill set to do that? And again, after a few conversations with her, I realized I had most of the skill set to do that, and I could learn the rest along the way. And so left City College, worked at the biotech startup for about a little over a year.
Okay.
Helping them set up the lab, helping with new hires. We were at the point of raising a Series A. And kind of towards the end of that year, and like I said, I was there for a little bit over a year and a half, another dear friend of mine approached me and said, there is this position that's going to open up at IndieBio, which is a program that's actually run underneath SOSV. And we'll get into that. This is how SOSV makes its investments. But it was for their chief scientific officer.
Okay.
And I was like, well, what is the chief scientific officer? That sounds cool.
That's a fabulous title.
She was saying that it really was working to find new investments, work with the founders to kind of hit their technical and scientific milestones, but really think about how do you really grow an idea into a company, into a business. And I was like, well, I got a little bit of experience in that. And so I spoke with the team. And I think for what I wanted to expand into, it just seemed like a good natural next step. And so I ultimately ended up leaving the biotech company to go work with IndieBio, again, under the umbrella of SOSV. And now I've been there for about a little over 2.5 years.
I love it. I love the trajectory of your journey.
Yeah, and I appreciate, and I think that, at each step, I've always asked myself, what am I going to learn? What am I going to bring? How can, like I've said before, how can I expand my knowledge base around a certain aspect? And I think the other thing that I really appreciate about the work I do now is the breadth of founders, ideas, and companies I get to work with.
Yeah. Do you think you'd say no if another opportunity came to you? And with the no in the same way of I don't know if I'm ready or if I have the skill. Do you think that little voice will creep up again?
I don't think so.
Yay.
I feel confident. I feel confident in what I know and what I don't know, but also in the ability for me to figure things out.
Yeah. I love that for you. I love that for us, because what you're doing is important and we need you to continue and to advance so much of the science that you are involved with. We often ask startups and founders to give an elevator pitch, right? That quick, 1 minute at a cocktail party, just tell me a little bit about your company. But as venture capitalists, we're horrible at it, if I'm honest. If I'm really honest, we're horrible at it. With that lovely lead-in, can you give us a elevator pitch of what SOSV is? And you could even start with what does SOSV stand for?
Sure. So SOSV stands for Sean O'Sullivan Ventures. Okay. Sean O'Sullivan is the managing director of the fund. And it started first as a family office fund in about 1995.
Gotcha.
But okay, let me start again, because I'll start take it from the top, as they say. So SOSV is a global multi-stage firm that is funding founders using engineering and biology to solve human and planetary health challenges. So think of everything from therapeutics to robotics to clean energy to green chemistry, biomaterials, ag tech. Like I said, if there is a engineering or scientific or biological component to it, we will take a look at it. We primarily like to invest at the pre-seed stage, so we want to be the first institutional check into companies, but we do have the capacity for follow-on financing.
Okay. Now, you guys just raised a huge Fund 5, right?
$306 million.
And you're going to do that at pre-seed? What size are those checks?
So the minimum check size we can write is $275. Again, first check into companies.
$275 divided by $300 million.
I can't do that.
I can't even do that math.
To be honest, it's a lot.
How many companies?
So I will say the kind of model or the way that we make the investments and how actually I would say, I don't want to say most, but many people do know us is through the programs that we run.
Okay.
So the way that we are able to capture kind of that broad human and planetary health investment thesis is through these two programs, IndieBio and HAX. IndieBio really focusing on more of the biological companies, healthcare, life science, and HAX focusing more on hard tech, robotics. They like to say basically if you drop it on your foot and it hurts, that's kind of their bread and butter.
I love that.
And so
I love that.
We are a global fund,
okay.
But IndieBio has 2 physical locations, one in San Francisco that was started in 2013, and then one here in New York, actually.
Which is fabulous.
I've been
just
on the street.
I'm a witness how fabulous it is.
And that actually came about 4 years ago through the support of New York State really wanting to catalyze more investments into early stage biotech companies. And then HAX, which has actually been around for a really long time. It primarily, initially started in Shenzhen, China, before decreasing their footprint there and setting up a physical home base in Newark, New Jersey. So across those 2 programs and across those 3 locations, we, and each location makes its own investments. So we are able to kind of capture and see so many early stage life science and engineering companies.
Fascinating. The day that I was there when you hosted a Venture Access Alliance event, thank you very much for doing that. I actually saw a lot of women there. Was that just a fluke or is the narrative that's out in the mass media that women aren't in STEM and in science, is that really true? Was I just there on like a happy day?
A good day? No, I think we are actually quite lucky that across all of our teams, it's pretty balanced in terms of gender. And, unfortunately, I don't have like any kind of percentages or numbers off the top of my head.
There can always be more.
There could always be more, exactly.
There we go.
I remember I was in a meeting with a gentleman, and he kind of said something along the same lines of like, oh, how many investments do you plan on making in like either women-led companies or women founders? And I was like, there's no limit. There's no limit. More.
Great
always.
Answer.
More.
Great answer.
And so I think for us, we do have a holistic view of what makes a good company and really looking at and always really making sure, like, who are the applicants that we are seeing? So anyone can apply to these programs that we have.
Okay. And we're going to put that on the website and
whether it's
everywhere.
Online or through Warm Connections.
Get all that information out to our listeners.
And it is often the case where I will look through like who we are making offers to, but then also on the back end of that, well, what does the applicant pool look like?
That's right.
And if we're not seeing enough, and I'm not just saying of women-led companies, but of certain sectors, of certain
geographies.
Geographies, exactly. Why? Is it because we don't have enough context there? Is it because maybe they actually don't know about, what we can offer? And so again, it is kind of this positive feedback loop of, really being very mindful of making sure, of looking at both our inputs and our outputs.
Yeah, I love that you use the word mindful. I use the word intentional, and it's
Absolutely.
So funny to me how certain sectors of society are threatened by words like diversity and inclusion, because in reality, it's just about bringing all the best voices and talent and experiences to bear on issues, whether it be an issue at a corporation, on a college campus, in a tech startup.
And the reality is good ideas can and should come from anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think to your point about the geographical reach, when I first started, we were seeing a lot of companies from Boston, from kind of the top tier schools. But, I went to a public school. I went to Virginia Tech,
Good school.
So, I was actually at Virginia Tech a few months ago saying like, hey, did you know that this program, this fund, I should say, really exists? And so, we have scouts, we have, kind of making sure that looking at the list of universities, institutions, organizations, and again, some of the ideas don't always have to come out of academic institutions. That's the other thing as well. So making sure we're just kind of expanding our reach so that anyone who thinks, hey, I might have an idea, would love to put it in front of SOSV, the barrier to do that is low. Yeah. I would even say, we just did an event with Life Science Cares last week. So they had something called Life Science Day, 6 research hubs, or I should say research and biotech hubs, because we're not really a research hub, but across the city, 250 high school students. So we had 28. We had 28 high school students.
I love it.
And part of the kind of activity we did with them was giving them the framework of how do you identify a problem, how do you think about a solution for it, and like kind of what would a company be around it. I gave them like 20 minutes to do that. And there were 7 teams, and they all came up with some really interesting ideas. And it was just, like I said, giving them the language, giving them the tools to say, like, you have ideas, maybe a little rough on the edges, but, thinking about how can you bring your own experiences, the people that you are surrounded by, thinking about the problems they have.
Yeah.
So I think I kind of just say that, all of that to say we are quite intentional about where we are looking for companies and then the kinds of investments we make.
I love it. All right, listeners, if you have a company, an idea, please, I want you to get in touch with Sabriya. And speaking of, how do people get in touch?
Well,
what's the website?
So the website is IndieBio.co.
Okay. And then where do you hang out? Are you like on LinkedIn? Are you a Twitter girl?
Where do I hang out?
Oh, no, it's not Twitter anymore. Sorry, Elon. Sorry, don't kill me.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I will say I appreciate a LinkedIn connection, always appreciate context. I tend, as I'm sure so many of us do, get all these LinkedIn requests, but
I mean, it does say you could add a note. Like people need to just take the 2 minutes and add a note.
yeah. But you can, formally apply on our website. I'm also at sabriya.stukes at SOSV.com. So if you have a pitch deck or a blurb, feel free to send it along.
Awesome. Thank you for making that available to our listeners. I so appreciate that. Okay, you've got a crazy busy day. I know we pulled you away from it, so we're going to do a quick speed round of just 2 questions for you to end this segment. A do or don't for entrepreneurs?
So because I work with a lot of technical founders, which I love, they can often get too in the weeds about their technology or about their solution right off the bat. And so, one of the things that we always kind of encourage our founders is, you really just want to get to that next discussion. You want to get the investor curious. You want to leave the investor curious but not confused.
Oh, I love that.
When thinking about whether it's, a new modality for therapeutic or, maybe something that feels very complex or complicated, if you're building like a climate tech or a new bioreactor, really figure out how to be concise so that it can get the investor excited. You don't need to go into too many details right off the bat. So I would say don't, get too technical or too jargony right away. And I would say do follow up.
Thank you for saying that. It seems so obvious and simple, but it needs to be said. Thank you.
Well, follow up with a specific ask or, something that can feel tangible for the investor to do. If it's setting up time to speak with you, if it's, clicking on the deck or, just not just like, here's the deck, what do you think?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Last question. If you could have anyone sitting in that chair for the next episode of VCs Off the Record, who would it be?
For a second, I almost was like, can I interview you? But I would say, something that you had touched on at the beginning of the conversation, which is, I think, anyone in the VAA, in the Venture Access Alliance group. I have been so impressed with the connections that I have made there. And as someone who's been living in New York now for 18 years, which I kind of cannot believe, seeing the growth of not just the biotech founder ecosystem, but of the venture ecosystem grow at the same time has been really exciting. And, I know for many other funds, they have different investment theses, different perspectives. But I also think if you are a New York investor, you kind of bring a little bit something different to these conversations as well.
Yeah, I love that you said that. That's a great one. And we will do more of having more VAA, Venture Access Alliance funds members coming on and talking about their venture funds. And I agree with you. It is a amazing community. The New York City VC community is amazing. And I don't know if I can say this, but there's not a lot of assholes. I find like there's a lot of, there are. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Well,
they're everywhere. But I find that there's just a lot of real human beings. People really genuinely care about making sure others are doing well. We check in on each other.
Yes.
It's just been really beautiful to see.
Yeah, and if I could just maybe give a quick kind of wrap up here is, actually when I was first offered this job, the friend of mine, she said one of the questions to ask yourself is, do you want to be an investor? And I was like, no.
Did you say no again, girl?
Well, no, because
we're gonna have to work on that.
Because I knew other investors.
Oh, okay,
and they were assholes.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. I don't think.
You're like, I'm good.
But, took a little bit of a leap of faith. And I absolutely agree with you. The people who I've been very lucky enough to meet, to interact with, to do deals with, to exchange deal flow, to talk about, trends that we're seeing, it's been wonderful. And I will say, the first 10 minutes of the conversation is usually, well, how are you? What's going on?
Yeah.
talk to me.
I love that.
And then it's like, okay,
now let's get into it.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. And I love you being on the show. Thank you
I'm so glad
much.
we were able to do this.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Stay fabulous.
You too.
This episode of VCs Off the Record is brought to you by Wocstar Ghetto Film School Entrepreneurial Academy.
Okay, so I didn't get to say this to her, but think of all the titles and labels for Sabriya. Scientist, microbiologist, investor, operator, director, chief scientific officer. I mean, she's a unicorn.
Yeah, she's
Do you
impressive.
see why I want these people on the show? Because I'm just fascinated by them.
Yeah, she was impressive, and she said some really great stuff. Like she said, I wrote it down. When going to a job or thinking about a job, what are you going to bring? What are you going to learn? I loved that.
Yeah, I think we should all use that when we're screening opportunities.
Yeah, it's
what
a good
can
litmus.
I bring? What can I learn?
And it really just changes how you... She said no a lot to things, but then said...
Which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like even the most accomplished, intelligent, fabulous folks can suffer from imposter syndrome, can say no, not think that they're the right fit, the right person. I mean, it happens at all levels of fabulousness. So we got to give ourselves grace.
And she said also, follow up. I was like, follow up, right? We leave the room,
So
we
simple.
get the yes, we get the whatever the case may be, and then you just let it lay for too long.
Yeah, it's so simple, but it is so important. And I used to be guilty of it too, right? Like I'd go to conferences and I'd get the business cards. I'm dating myself now, right? Business cards, who uses those anymore? And I get back to my hotel and I'd be like, first thing in the morning, 5 a.m., the alarm clock would go off. I'd be in the hotel, I'd bounce up and I'd write my like, hey, it was great meeting you yesterday at the blah, blah, blah conference. I'd love to, catch up with you. Love to like find some time. And I was thinking, yeah, I'm cool. I did this. I did my follow-up. And then weeks would go by and I wouldn't follow up to see if they had even replied.
Right.
Right? So here I was thinking I was like, doing everything correctly. And yeah, so I was really glad when she talked about follow-up because it's so key. And that's why I'm not even worried about giving my email out to people because
yeah. Who's really going to do it?
Yeah. Who really follows up? Who's really going to email?
Well, it's funny. You said who gives out business cards. I went to a thing the other day. You actually sent me to this really great event for a company called Smart Care. And someone gave me a business card. Pulled it out of the jacket. And I wrote them an email the next day. But so they still do. They still do. But I think what's also interesting is that Cole reached out to somebody who's who runs a network, and they wrote me back, and I had an ask, and I asked them about a meeting I wanted to set up with them, and they said yes. And then I followed up with some dates, and then I didn't hear from them. And I followed up again, and I followed up again, and I followed up the third time. And then they were like, so sorry, we were away. Absolutely, let's do it on this date. And I was like, ugh. That's the part that I think the follow-up to the follow-up. Right?
Yeah, because then you're like, am I
being
annoying?
pushy.
Am I being pushy?
Right. I've come to the realization that it's okay to just keep asking until you get the no.
Yes.
Or the yes.
Yes.
Right? And in this case, it was good news. It was that they were just away.
And not to take it personal.
Yeah.
People are busy.
100%.
People are
Emails
busy.
get lost.
Emails
Bump
get
it up.
lost.
Yeah.
Exactly. Put it on the top of their pile again. The other thing that I took away from this conversation was the human and planetary health. I'll be honest, I really didn't know what it was.
It sounded very lofty and very good.
Yes. But when she broke it down, it makes so much sense because the things that affect our body can affect our planet. And the behavior and the activities that we're involved in can also affect the planet and society and our communities. And it's all interwoven. And so you have to take that holistic view in terms of how you think about solutions, whether it be to climate, whether decarbonization, whether it be those infectious disease issue worked on. it really started to make sense, the interconnectedness of us all.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat how they approach their investing and working with entrepreneurs before they may even be ready for the investment, right, through their programming. It's really
And
really neat to
Mia,
see.
our content producer, said, I was so cool to learn about science and investing, right? Because you think, it just is not the first thing you think of. And so to really see how deep and what a deep dive.
Deep dive into deep tech.
Yeah.
And I love that our team and like Mia was able to see that, right? Like
Yeah.
to see a cool, badass Wocstar chick talking about science and investing.
Good job.
Good job. Good job, Sabriya. Alrighty, with that, we are going to say our goodbyes to you, Wockstars. Go be fabulous, go be amazing, and we will see you soon on another episode of VCs Off the Record. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.
Thanks for hanging with us. This podcast was produced by Wocstar Media in New York City at the Podstream Studios. Be sure to follow VCs Off the Record on Apple and Spotify. We're also on Sheconomy, the State of Women podcast platform. Please consider giving us a good review or share it with someone. Let us know what you want us to talk about on our socials and our YouTube channel. You can find us at wockstar.com for all the information.